Howdy, tribe! So, for this week's installment of Minimalist Monday, I wanted to discuss a very much underappreciated and underthought about piece of minimalist slash survival gear that ultimately is a really important piece, but just doesn't really get a lot of a thought or discussion, at least in my experience, and that is the lightweight, waterproof raincoat slash windbreaker. Not altogether dissimilar from what you see here. I'll start off by telling a little story. A few weeks ago, or I don't know, maybe as long as six weeks ago maybe, I went on a camping trip and I was in Wisconsin, middle of summer. Didn't really pack a lot of cold weather clothing with me just because I didn't expect that I was going to encounter any cold weather, considering that it was the middle of summer. And of course, the day that we get to our campsite, it's of course pouring down rain and probably a good 30 degrees cooler than what I was expecting the temperatures to be. Now, I did have this jacket with me, but for the entire first 5-6 hours of our camp setup, it was pouring down rain the entire time. This is why we were setting up the tent. We actually did another installment of a Minimalist Monday where you saw me setting up my tent in wet weather conditions, and that was the camping trip that I'm referring to. And under those circumstances, I was really, really shocked. I hadn't really been in this situation before where I had been out and gotten caught so ill-prepared in terms of clothing. I had a pair of shorts, a t-shirt, and this jacket on, and thank God I did have this jacket on because I probably would have frozen my downstairs bits off had I not actually had this jacket with me. It was probably maybe in the upper 50s, which doesn't really sound like it's that cold, but for a prolonged period of time, when you're just out and you're wet, it's amazing how chilled to the bone you can get and how quickly you can actually find yourself in a dicey situation if you don't have the right clothing items with you. And so with that in mind, I specifically wanted to discuss the jacket, the lightweight jacket and waterproof windbreaker, and I really wanted to bring it to your all's attention because in consideration for that event, it really showcased to me how ill-prepared I am in that department. This jacket is fine, however, it was described, I think, as water resistant. It was an Eddie Bauer jacket that I got at one of those kind of strip mall type places. It was on discount, so it wasn't a bad jacket, but I certainly didn't get it with the intent of having to rely on it super heavily. But that being said, it did keep me dry. It did start to show the watermarks after a while, and it also is not the lightest jacket. So in hindsight now, I realize how ill-prepared I was and also how just not knowledgeable I am in this department. I really wanted to open it up to you guys and see if maybe you could give me some good opinions. I'm looking for a better jacket, something that can pack away to nothingness, that's ultra lightweight, great windbreaker, and also waterproof, of course, because as I started thinking about it, it made me think about a bit of survival knowledge that I heard, I don't know, this is some years ago, and I'm probably going to butcher it here, but it was something like the power of threes. That's probably not what it's called, but in essence, it went something like this. You can go 3 weeks without food, you can go 3 days without water, you can go maybe 3 hours or so, depending on your environment, without shelter, and then you can go about 3 minutes without air. Again, there's probably a deviation within all of those, but those are kind of rough estimates. And as I started thinking about where this fit into that lineup, shelter is obviously one of the most important things that everybody thinks about for survival. But if you happen to be away, you're not at your tent, and you happen to get caught in a bad weather situation, or you're out collecting firewood or whatever, and you happen to have this, in essence, this is like a piece of, I would consider it like a piece of shelter, because even though you're not going to sleep in it and be comfortable, you can cuddle up and kind of curl up into a ball inside, a good windbreaker or rain jacket. And if you are in some nasty conditions, it could be the difference between life and death for you. So with that in mind, it started making me think about this more as like a backup shelter item, and something that I should always have with me no matter where I am. Even if I've already set up a base camp and I have a tent, if I'm not there and immediately in a position where I can get into my tent, it's a really good idea to have a lightweight coat or windbreaker, something like this that can keep you safe from the elements, because like I just described in the law of threes there's really not too many things other than a lack of oxygen that'll kill you as quickly as the elements can, especially if you were in a really either cold environment or harsh or hot environment. It can be pretty brutal, so it's really, really good to have your bases covered for shelter. And now that I've experienced that in the flesh, and of course mine wasn't a life or death scenario, but I have now experienced just how kind of quickly a fun camping trip can suddenly turn into a really unpleasant situation. It's made me reconsider this. And so, yeah, I want to open this up to you guys. Please, please, please get back at me with your suggestions here. I really don't know a lot about jackets. I hadn't really spent a lot of time thinking about it. And so now I find myself in a position where I want to definitely up my game in this department, but I don't really know where to go. So, starting point, let's just imagine that price is no object. Tell me what is the absolute best jacket, most waterproof, most lightweight jacket that I can get for the money, and at least that's a starting point. I can kind of take it from there. So thanks for watching, guys. Look forward to hearing your opinions. Stay safe out there. You guys have a great week. Take care.